Oh.
First, check to make sure your mics are on. I don't think any people push. Thank you.
Could it please roll call?
Thank you.
Under this section where we were discussing the church tax exemption status, I just city manager's comments weren't listed here.
I don't put every comment at it. I mean, I put questions, and if there's solid answers, I put those in. I don't necessarily put comments in, but I can go back and add them in.
Yeah, if you wish, we can table those the next time. Or,
I was just more curious.
thank you. I'll entertain a motion one way or the other.
I move to approve the minutes from last meeting, June the 6th, sorry, June 14th, as written. Second.
Who was that? Van Dongen. Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Nunkamp and seconded by Commissioner Van Dongen for approval of the July 14th meeting minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay. Item number 7 is a public hearing. This is a legislative in which we will be making recommendation to city council. So staff, if I can get the procedure for the public hearing.
Thank you. The North Plains Planning Commission will conduct a legislative public hearing on file TA 23-060 Lennar Northwest Type 4 zoning text amendment. The order of business will be as follows. The chairperson will open the public hearing and request the staff report. The commission may ask questions at any time during the public hearing. Any written correspondence submitted on behalf of this item will be orally presented, including the individual's name and address. The public will be invited to provide oral and written testimony on the proposed amendment. Additional staff comments will then be presented. The chairperson will call for commission comments and discussion. The chairperson then will close the public hearing or continue the hearing to a date certain. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the proceeding and must provide their name and full mailing address. Parties will be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code and state law. The city municipal code, zoning, and development standards specifies applicable criteria relied upon in making a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact are in the city's staff review. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact, or to other state or city land use standards that the person testifying believes applies to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and the parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to public hearing at 7:07 for city file TA 23-060 Lennar Northwest type 4 text amendment. Since this is a legislative hearing, there is no conflict of interest, so if I could please get the staff report.
Thank you, Chair King and fellow planning commissioners. Steve Miller, planning manager for the city of North Plains. We did receive a request from Lennar Northwest for a text amendment to the city's clear vision standards.
मीटिंग ऑफ जूम में ज्वाइन की हूँ।
Please mute yourself.
नहीं वीडियो
Please mute yourself. I know, okay, I don't have to do that. I got to exit out that. The applicant's request is to amend the clear vision standards of the city's code as they apply to driveways along private alleys. That's the request that we have tonight. And as we work through that, staff has prepared a staff report that was available July 5th, was supplied to folks who submitted comments into the record. It simply says, I don't care about fences in the marketplace. I do care that we don't have important purposes like large recycling centers. That is from Greg and Humphrey. I can't quite ever make out their last name, and they're from the Sunset Ridge. We will also put that in the It's being requested by the we determined to be a violation of standards. So through that process. So the site plans they have the staff erred in the review of the city standards. The city approved these site plans of the show that that's driveways. However, the site plans did not know the height of the proposed fences. At that time, city staff should have requested some additional information from the applicant to find out what the heights of those fences were going to be. So staff could review them against the clear vision standards, as well as the Brimhill pattern book, to make sure that the fences were in compliance with the master plan, pattern book, and the clear vision standards. And that did not happen. And so the city essentially approved the site plans, and the fences were erected, and they were 6 feet tall. Since I came on board in September 22, additional folks wanted to come forward and extend their fencing around the rear of their home. At that time, I realized that we had a problem, that these fences were not in compliance with the city standards or with the adopted pattern book for the Brittenell Master Plan. So that kicked off a series. So at that time, on the alley, once that was kind of up to attention that we had a problem there, that really bring some neighbors in these zones, rightfully so. And that's right. And they attended the city council meeting to let the city council know their thoughts. And then to contact the staff, the city manager and myself, but they're concerned on this cost. Set up the work session here with planning commission. The planning commission could hear their concerns, provide some feedback, and let them know if there may have been an error with the codification of the clear vision standard when those were recently revisited. And some amendments were made to those standards. So through that planning commission work session, several planning commissioners acknowledged that they believe there was an error in the adoption of the language, and there was never intended to apply to the private alleys and the driveways along those lines. As a result of that work session, Lennar Homes and their consulting team prepared the proposed text amendment to the code. Because this particular text amendment has implications, even though clear vision standards don't specifically relate to fencing, in this particular issue, that's the underlying issue. And so my next slide will kind of talk about how to look, what should have been included, and so we'll show a few fencing pictures. So this is the pattern book. As you can see, we put pattern book here. So in the legend here, you can see that the red is a 3-foot fence, the purple and blue are 6-foot fences. This is the alley here, and this is the street. And so in the flat, it was going to be 3-foot fences, and I'm sorry if they're shaky, let's say too much concrete. And then here we have the taller fences. So the idea was that the living space would be on the side of these homes with a active passive easement and adjacent to use an additional space for the outdoor area, and that would reciprocate down the line. Every lot would have to have this active passive easement. So this person would have active use of this property, this neighbor would have passive use, so they can come in and maintain their property. The spacing would be set back 2 feet within the rear of the home, 6 feet, and that was what was approved for the Brittenell master plan for the single family rear loaded homes. There also was a body and it specifies that very thing that 2 feet between the rear of the building, the height would be 6 feet. That's where the things would be built up to 6 feet. What we have is so the applicant is looking to amend our standards for the applicability of the clear vision standards. In the top period, this is what the current code reads. If you'd like, I can read that planning commission to you, but I think you understand that. Below is the new proposed language. So as you can see, the proposed language is proposing to remove the standards from applying to private alleys and those driveways along those private alleys. What that means is today we would have something more like this. This is what the current standard would allow. Something a couple feet back, open alley, line of sight. You can also do a 3-foot fence with the current standards. What you can't do right now, I think it's the 6-foot fence. And this is taken today, so this is the current alley there between, Brookings and Terrell. And Lennar proceeded to go ahead after we discussed this and remove some of the 6 spaces and replace them with 60. Some of the existing residents, we have contended that they can maintain those 6 fences right now until we get through this process, and we understand that there will be a change. So we have a mix of fencing right now along the alleys, some that are in compliance with the current standards and that are out of compliance with the current standards. That's just another look at that same alley, just to give you an idea of what we have there. You can kind of see where some of this is. And so we did the staff recommendation, and we know this recommendation has a lot of people concerned about it. Trying to explain myself so we understand what the recommendation really is. And so for this particular amendment, it's around regulations of transportation safety standards and community-wide safety standards, and maintaining an environment that is safe for all citizens of those here from traveling. That's what the provision standards are intended to do. In terms of my recommendation, I have recommended a neutral position as now, and the reason for that is I don't have all the background to be able to make a fair recommendation. So I'm going to be relying on my teammates there as a planning commission to catch me up a little bit, help me understand everything that we've done previously, so we can identify a need for this change. And I believe the need is going to be identified as a codification error. And so I would like to get that under the record for this, even though we did that through the work session. Now that we have a formal application for a text amendment, it would be helpful if we could bring that conversation back. We have some new participants here who were not part of that work session from the Sunset Ridge subdivision. The reason that those folks were notified is the city only has 2 subdivisions that have eyes. So this standard typically would be citywide, but we only have 2 places where there's actually alleys. So instead of noticing the whole city, we focused on where the impact is going to be, and we notified the folks from Sunset Ridge and the folks from Green Hill. That resulted in a couple of matters. And so I would just like to kind of go back to that work session a little bit, explain to everybody here what may have happened in the past, what the intent was with that effort, and how we make it clear in the codification, so we can kind of discuss now the proposed text amendment to try and correct that. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Actually, page 5 of your staff report. This is the paragraph. It seems like easy.
About that recommendation.
So that's what I'm saying, is that the different type of accents. Basically,
When you say that there was a street widening project, we could create a non-conforming provision situation. We will certainly have to address those when they come up. Obviously, the code doesn't anticipate that type of situation, but also we also understand that when you make code revisions that it can't impact existing development, and we recognize those as legal non-conforming, or people like to refer to as grandfather. So it would be something that would be a violation. It just means that they do something in the future we're going to address it.
the other thing for that, taking a neutral position.
And like I indicated in my presentation, I don't think that we'd be able to sit there and say that the current standard isn't there. And it should be amended to the code. So I'm looking to my teammates in the energy, hopefully understanding what we're discussing time, or what your thoughts were the next time. And that we actually use it. That was the case, step this forward. Do the plan, and do the city council. We actually have the code written as intended originally. And staff will also support that and say that the current code is adequate. And it does ensure that your areas need to be clear for it. And so again, I'm really looking for some help here as I introduce that to understand the task of the record and to get that onto this record so we can identify the need to change.
I reckon in here that we brought up about safety and some different types of safety. If the safety person finds.
Well, I think what you're saying, it doesn't take that approach, it looks like it's citywide, whether it's primarily on the street, liquor, the region's going to be complex. Intersection, for instance, the code is written right now. Intersection free,
So, move to houses.
But this slide, so this is the slide that the approved pattern of for the single family rear loaded homes, which is what we're dealing with right now. In the alley between two trees, Perkins and Quill. So this is what is approved the development of this painting. In addition, you've probably seen the agenda, in addition to this, we put status and modification that would address this specifically. We'll get into that after this.
To do something more.
That is really the only way that CCNRs can go. When they're paying or anything that maybe the city code isn't just to the level that they would like. There can be system would be more restrictive than city code, but then it can be. There is a clause in this part that says, regardless of the pattern that everything still needs to be by the citizen. Otherwise,
Wasn't that worked, so. Issue and see zones. I'm talking about intersections with those problems, streets. We're talking about listening from.
yes, so I want to come back up so you can see it. So what it's saying is that intersection of the street and regular, or the very providing access to the that's one block. And then you're going to leave and then put in clarify what that means. And it's saying that And for the purposes of these standards, the private access will be created a public street for this section. So even on the private alley, it applies. And we took this, believe me, we didn't work this is vetted this with the city attorney. We also vetted it back with Lennar and their city and their attorney. And both attorneys agreed that the way the code is currently written, it would apply to driveways along private alleys.
Right, but if we're treating private access as a public street, we're still talking about intersections. So therefore, every driveway on the backside of that alley is not considered a corner.
We're saying that it would be like this, where the code's written, we're saying that those driveways would have a clear vision standard, and if the clear vision standard was applied to these lots, you would have fencing that would not block the clear vision area, or you would have 3-foot fencing, which would also not block the clear vision area. So that's the way the code is currently written for driveways along private alleys.
The text amendment would remove the intersection of the driveway and a private alley from that.
So the amendment would say that the standards no longer apply to those driveways along private alleys.
But I still don't think it does. That's my problem, is I'm looking at this code the way we intended it. We intended the alleys to be treated like private driveways. And in the sense that it's a long common driveway intersecting a public street. So at each of those intersections, one would assume we need clear vision, not every single driveway within that alley. I mean, that would be the same thing for every private lane in our streets within the city. Why don't they have this restriction?
Every single lot that is in the city right now that is on a public street or a private street would have this clear vision standard for the front yard, whether it's front loaded or rear loaded. And in addition to that, like I indicated, we did work extensively with our attorneys and the applicant's attorney to make sure that both concurred that the standard applied to the driveways along the private alleys. And both attorneys agreed that the way the code is currently written, that the standard does apply to every single driveway along a private alley. That was pretty clear.
I guess based on the exhibit we have for the clear vision, I don't know how that can be applicable to any driveway that is not at a intersection corner.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to grasp.
I'm just trying to help you grasp that by indicating to you that we vetted this extensively. And the folks that get paid the top dollars, the land use attorneys that we consult with, and attorneys for Lennar, both read this, both looked at what's being done out there, and both attorneys concurred that the way the code is written now, it would apply to every single driveway along a private alley.
I agree, it's difficult to see that, but it must be a gray area and this would be.
So that it applies on private driveways, but it doesn't, private alleys, private roadways, but it doesn't apply to public.
Applies to public too. Right in the top, it says driveways providing vehicular access to a public street. It applies to driveways.
Yeah, but I think of a see, in my mind, that's like a flagpole lot. That's not just a pulling your in and out standard vehicle.
If you go around the city, you'd be surprised at how many people actually have their fencing at 3 feet along the front of their property to the standard. And they've either put a short chain link fence so you can see through it. Some of it's even a little bit taller than 3 feet, but it is chain link along the front. Some people have picket fencing in that area. Some people have solid wood fencing that's at 3 feet. Some people have no fencing. So I've seen a wide range along the old town, if you will.
That's going on by the.
And so I'm just sharing with you, to answer the question that we wouldn't be here right now if the attorneys didn't agree. The attorneys agreed that this does apply to those driveways along the private alleys. And so it has elevated it to this level at this time.
All right. Applicant, please come forward.
Either microphone is fine, just
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Maureen Jackson, and I am a project planner with PCD. And if,
Address.
for the record, my address is 12564 Southwest Main Street in Tigard. There we go. Thank you. So tonight I'm representing Lennar in their request for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to the City Council to approve a text amendment to the city's Clear Vision Code standards and to approve a minor modification to the Bren Hill pattern book. So Lennar has submitted these applications in order for the city to allow 6-foot tall fencing in the rear yards of alley loaded homes with 20-foot long driveways. The current Clear Vision standards do not allow for the taller fencing. And to be clear, as we've discussed, we are talking about fencing in the rear yards of alley loaded homes. And the alleyways that serve these homes are private tracks intended for vehicle use only by the homeowners adjacent to the alley. The alleys are not public rights of way. So we would like to point out that the fundamental design principles for Bren Hill and other developments with alley loaded homes include providing streets and public spaces that promote pedestrian safety, connectivity, and activity while screening the views of off-street parking. These design principles are met in Bren Hill and other similar neighborhoods by providing safe and efficient pedestrian and bicycle connectivity along the public streets designed with sidewalks, street trees, landscape strips, and street lighting, while the off-street parking is screened from view and minimized in the development with parking located in the rear of the home.
Next slide.
Yes, please. So the proposed text amendment is based on conversations and feedback received during the March Planning Commission meeting and the April work session. And we hope the amendment here reflects the commissioner's intentions. As noted, we are asking that the code be modified to clarify that Clear Vision area standards do not apply to individual homeowners' driveways on private alleyways. Next. So you can see from the top right photo that the design of the private alleyways reinforces the fact that they are not intended for pedestrian or bicycle traffic or to be used as common open space. The alleys are also designed to encourage slow movement of vehicles and deter use from anyone other than the directly adjacent homeowners. While the rear of the homes have paths to the driveways, the alleys do not include sidewalks or pedestrian connections. All pedestrian connectivity is supported and promoted from the front of the homes with pathways leading from the front door to the sidewalks. And then no public parks or open spaces are accessible from the alleys. The public parks and open spaces are made easily accessible from the public sidewalks and located and designed to offer a variety of recreational amenities for children of all ages. So as you can see in the bottom left photo, a 3-foot fence, which complies with the existing Clear Vision standards, will not deter kids or prevent pets from leaving the rear yard and entering into the alleyway. Without the 6-foot tall fence, families with small children and pets will be unable to safely utilize the private open space provided on these lots. In addition to offering a usable private open space to these homeowners, the taller fence provides privacy and a sense of security. As you can see in the bottom right photo, the 6-foot fence blocks views directly into the home and obscures sight of items in the backyard, such as grills, play equipment, and patio furniture, which may deter crime. Next slide. So in addition to impacting the safety, security, and privacy of the homeowners, approval of the text amendment will align the Clear Vision standards with the allowed setbacks. As several homeowners had previously demonstrated with their own photos and exhibits, you can see here that the application of the Clear Vision standard to private alleyways not only impacts placement of the fences, but the placement of the homes and the garages. For example, the rear portion of the 3 homes circled here are located within the clear vision area, which is shown in yellow. The dimensional standards allowed in North Plains neighborhood community, the R 7.5 and R5 zones allow principal structures, accessory dwellings, and accessory structures on alley access lots to be set back 2 feet from the rear yard property line. Planning Commission's recommendation to amend the clear vision standard text will rectify this conflict. The requested amendment will not impact or alter transportation regulations or safety standards on city streets and will continue to ensure obstructions do not infringe on the sight lines needed at points of conflict between cars, pedestrians and bikes at intersections. So thank you for your time. I do have Lennar representatives here with me this evening, if you have any questions for them as well.
Any questions of the applicant?
I have one. You talked about the speed on that. Is there a posted? Is there a posted speed limit on that alley?
There is not currently a posted speed limit. That is something that could be considered.
Is there slow children play signs on that alley?
There is no signage at this time, but that is something that Lennar would be happy to do. But, and once again, the alleyways are not intended for children to be playing in. That's why we have the park systems and.
I walk it like, and there's families and children walking up and down the alleys, so we need to look at speed and we need to look at something.
Any other questions?
Can you just confirm that your request does not include eliminating the clear vision standard for a property that is adjacent to where an alleyway intersects with a street?
That is correct. So the upper right-hand corner,
Okay,
this is the private alley in the center, and the upper right-hand corner is Terrell. That intersection would require the clear vision.
and if I were to go to the left of the alley down there and get to an intersection, the house on the corner would also require clear vision.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
with the private street, yes, or public street.
Any other questions of the applicant? None?
Chair King, my name is Garrett Stevenson. I'm legal counsel for Lennar, although I was not involved until recently in this. And
Please.
yep, it's 1211 Southwest Fifth Avenue, Suite 1900, Portland, Oregon 97204.
Thank you.
Just a point of order here. I want to make sure that I got an opportunity for rebuttal after public testimony.
Grant.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to do. Thank you.
Thank you. You're good. Unless you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, is there any testimony proponent in favor of? Is there anyone on the Zoom?
I'm not seeing any hands at the moment. To speak at this time.
Are you speaking as a proponent in favor of?
Favor of the recommendation?
That's what I'm asking. Okay. Are there any opponents? People that wish to testify against? Please come forward. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Don Weber, 28840 Northwest Carver Street, Sunset Ridge. My concern as a parent and a grandparent, I'm a retired person who's outside 3-4 hours a day, so I observe this neighborhood and Bryn Hill I ask a lot of questions of people. I've lived in two neighborhoods like Sunset Ridge. All of them told me that if I have a back garage, I don't get a fence by the driveway because they're not safe. They impede vision. When I moved into Sunset Ridge, first question they asked me, you want a backyard? Yes, I want a backyard. You're gonna have to pay at least another 50,000. That means you're gonna have a front garage because back garages don't get fences because we can't do that. So I'm a little confused to start with because every development I've been with doesn't have this. Now, I realize by doing it, Lennar can make more money. But the question to me is it safe? The other thing, when they testify, alleys are not used for pedestrians. I'm sorry, that's not a true statement. Everybody who has grandkids and kids, we keep the stroller, the scooter, the bike, everything. Where do we keep it? In the garage. Kids go up and down the driveways, go into the alleys. The only way to get to the sidewalks is down the alley, right? The other thing kids love to do, they love to do chalk art. Chalk art they do in the alleys. You can't see them. So my thing is, I'm surprised this conversation to me is not complicated. 6-foot fences are extremely dangerous. The driver can't see, you can't see kids. I understand at some level 3 feet would be safer. I get that. Clearly 6 foot is not. I do also, though, speak in behalf of the property owners. I think they were sold something from Lennar that Lennar should not have been able to sell them. I think there was a mix-up. They were promised something that Lennar finds out now. I can't deliver what I told you. You paid for it. So they deserve compensation. If they end up with a 3-foot fence, they need to be compensated because they paid for a 6-foot fence. And there's a huge difference. Or perhaps they deserve a different product because it's a big issue. I'm sure all these people are going to say, I wanted a backyard with a privacy fence. It's a big issue. They were promised it. The problem is, what I'm hearing is Lennar did not have a right to promise that the code did not allow it. There was some sort of mix-up. For most of us in Sunset Ridge, to be honest, we don't get all these documents. They're floating around. We got them in the mail. Nobody knows what they mean. My understanding is basically what it means is, for some reason, our builder said fences aren't allowed in alleys, right? So Polycon and down there said, we're not allowed to do it. But somehow Bryn Hill's saying down here, Lennar's saying they were allowed. So I don't understand it, but it makes no sense to me. I would ask when they retestify if Lennar could tell me where in Portland they have 6-foot fences next to alleys in their developments, because I've been to different ones around town, or Renco and whatever, and I just don't see it. Thank you.
Any questions of the testimony? None? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other opponents wishing to testify again? Is anyone that's neutral just wishing to testify?
I don't see any hands. Let me check the chat real quick. The audio is bad.
Yeah, you guys need to speak into the microphones.
Basically, the only comments I have is the audio is bad on chat.
Okay, if there's no one else wishing to testify, I'll entertain rebuttal.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and Steve, I was actually not the lawyer involved in looking at this issue, and I, as I said earlier, I was just brought into this, and I'll just tell you that from my perspective, this makes a ton of sense, what the proposal is before you tonight. And it makes sense for a number of reasons. First, the pattern book was approved with 6-foot fences. And that is, you're shaking your head no, but that's what
We were told it was 3-foot fences in the back.
I'm pretty sure it was approved with taller fences, but
This is, where is that? Right there, that's the pattern. That's what was approved. The 6-foot fences were approved 2 feet behind the rear of the home.
right. So, okay, so they were
The home, not a property line, right?
Right, so the pattern book approved 6-foot fences 2 feet back from, the edge
Rear of
of
the home.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't protrude out
Right.
into blocking of the driveway.
Right, and so the proposal before you is, I think, even more in line with what the city code apparently requires by increasing that setback distance to 3 feet. So I don't think this was a situation where Lennar promised something that it didn't think it could deliver. I think it relied on the pattern book to do what it did. But again, these are fences and, things happen as you're, when you're building fences. And I think that this is the appropriate, regardless of what the correct interpretation of code is, I think this is the appropriate solution to the problem. The other thing is that, and I don't know how many of you have really thought about why we do alley loaded dwellings, but alley loaded dwellings, and this is going back to my time in planning school, were really proposed to emulate a neo-traditional sort of streetcar suburb. And when I got a call to come to this hearing, I took a look at a couple of the very, very well-known streetcar suburbs in Portland to see where their fences were at. And as I suspected, most of the older neighborhoods in Portland, and including some in Orinco Station, have at least a 6-foot fence right up against the line of the alley. Now, that's not what we're proposing today. There's going to be a 3-foot setback. So I don't think it is at all unprecedented that you have tall fences along alleys. I think that in newer communities like this, what we try to do as planners is we try to apply codes that were developed during the 2000s to a product type that was really trying to emulate something from 100 years ago. And this can sometimes lead to confusion like we have now. But it's certainly not the case that that it causes a pronounced safety hazard. Streetcar suburbs have had fences right along the alleys for 120 years. And, the idea that, and I appreciate Mr. Weber's comments from Sunset Ridge. And I think one of the planning commissioners asked what I thought was a very astute question, which is, can Sunset Ridge impose a more restrictive standard through its HOA? And it can. And I think that's appropriate if they decide to do that. But in this case, I think that there's broad consensus, at least among Lennar's buyers, that this is something they want. This is something we assumed we could do. And this is, I think, a really good resolution to the problem. And as somebody who has had dogs in the past, I wouldn't want to try to keep my dog within a backyard with only a 3-foot fence, but that's a personal aside. As far as the safety concerns, I certainly think that, Lennar could entertain putting some signage up there, but as a practical matter, if you've ever driven down alleys, I suspect you're not buzzing through them at 25, 30 miles an hour. People go through alleys very slowly because they're so narrow and because people are looking out for kids and people who walk. And that was one of the reasons why they were trying to drill into us in planning school, that this was the right way to build homes 20 years ago. Now, whether or not these alley loaded homes are the future of every community, I don't know, but what they represent is a trade-off. And the trade-off is you get the home closer to the street. You don't have to look at the garage. You have smaller, less deep front yards. And so that you can, quote unquote, activate the street. In return from that, you get to get your vehicle into your house from the back. And typically you will have some private open space that you can fence off in the back of the house. That's a tension I understand with this code, but that's what I've seen done in other communities. And so that's just what I would say. And I don't, again, I don't think it's a situation where Lennar went into this thinking that it was doing something untoward. I think that everybody went into this with the best of intentions, and that's why we're bringing this forward today, to make sure that Lennar's owners are being taken care of as best we can. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any question from the planning commission? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Just ask, one more time, is there anyone else wishing to testify? One, two. Okay, is there any discussion before I close the public hearing?
Questions.
Okay.
So. I know the majority of the discussion tonight is being brought forth by the alleys in the NC zones. But because this proposed language defines private access as a private street or alley, that then opens up the interpretation for other streets within our city. The discussion tonight about the 3 feet inset from the property line before a fence can be constructed, should that be included in here? Because now if you put 3 foot in the pattern book, that then assures the alley loaded homes that they would in fact be safe. But all the other private streets would then have to comply with the other standard.
Yeah, let me help you with that a little bit. As you know, in the proposal that we have right now, there's no setback being proposed, right? So that's not part of this proposal. What he's getting at is in the modification of the pattern book, that's what they're proposing. They're proposing with the amendment to the pattern book, it would be 6 foot fences, 3 feet back from where the property line is out. So they're proposing it as an amendment or a modification of the pattern book. If you believe that that's significant and that you would like to carry that forward, it could be part of your recommendation for this text amendment.
Well, I think it's definitely something to consider, because to me, it doesn't seem fair to allow one neighborhood to do something because they're alley loaded, but another neighborhood that has a private street, they can't do the same thing.
I think
That's
that
right.
would be a good, robust discussion for the planning commission to have tonight.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
If there's nothing else, I will close the public hearing at 7:53. There's no deliberating, I will entertain a motion. I'll just state one more time, I'm not happy that our staff took a neutral position. The reminder that this motion will be in the recommendation to city council. And do we have a date certain or do we need that?
I believe we're going to be bringing it forward to their next meeting, if we can notice it in time, but if not, it would be 4 weeks from now.
Better for us not to say it.
Yeah. And so I'm leaning towards the 4 weeks from now.
So if we want to make modifications to this proposal amendment, is there any recommendations on that language?
Are you referring to the 3 foot setback for the alley fencing? Is that the modification you're talking about?
It's the street.
Right, I just strongly feel that one neighborhood shouldn't benefit more than another neighborhood just because they have an alley versus a private street. when technically they're both private streets, but anyways. I guess that's if we grant the pattern book changes. I don't know, does anybody else have any thoughts?
I like the idea of applying it.
What is our standard dimensions of an alley?
I'm sorry, what's
Standard dimensions of an alley?
it? Typically 20 feet wide. Maybe Laura can provide some insight on that too for these particular alleys, but I believe, they're 20 from what I've seen in the past. Is that correct?
Well, I want to know what our code says.
I would have to pull that up. I don't know it, right now verbatim. But I do know that these alleys when they're private are typically done through a master planning process where deviations are allowed to the standards. And I believe that's what happened probably in this situation through the master planning process.
Okay, I'm assuming our street standards have a standard for the,
Yeah, 60 feet will right away.
no, I'm talking about alleys, not public street.
Director Miller, do we have any alleyways outside of Brent Hill and Sunset Ridge?
We did an extensive review of that, for the notice. And, there were no other alleys. The only other potential issue is, what Chair King raised with, maybe a flag lot or, an easement to a landlocked parcel. They do create some, long, roadways, if you will, or driveways that, if they're fenced all the way to the street, can provide some, obstruction.
Okay. I'll move that the city planning commission recommend to city council to adopt this type 4 zoning code text amendment of city file number TA 23-060 as written with the additional modification of including a 3-foot setback. And I would like to consider what you're talking about, the other streets later.
Commissioner Levante?
I'm sorry, that was too far.
I think they, a different time.
Private streets at a different time.
Not with this.
For just for clarification, the motion is to,
Is there a second?
Clarification on your proposal.
The motion is for recommendation for approval to the city council, including a modification of a 3-foot setback on alleys.
Specifically on that.
Yes, Alex.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Howard for approval, recommendation of approval of file number TA 23-060 for type 4 text amendment, zoning text amendment, and to also include a 3-foot setback on alleys for the fencing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstention? All right, it's unanimous. All right. Staff, you need to read the procedure for the second public hearing.
Do, thank you, Chair. The North Plains Planning Commission will conduct a hearing on file Civil Legislative Chair King?
Yes,
Okay,
That's not this modification, this is not what it's.
to the pattern book?
what is it then?
It's a type 2 minor modification.
So this is a legislative, I mean, a quasi judicial?
Project,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes,
File MOD 23-062, Bryn Hill minor modification to pattern book. The order of business will be as follows. The chairperson will open the public hearing and request the staff report. The commission may ask questions at any time during the public hearing. Any written correspondence submitted on behalf of this item will be orally presented, including the individual's name and address. The public will be invited to provide oral and written testimony on the proposed amendment. Additional staff comments will then be presented. The chairperson will call for commission comments and discussion. The chairperson will close the public hearing or continue it to a hearing, a date certain. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the proceeding and must provide their name and full mailing address. Parties will be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code and state law. The city municipal code zoning and development standards specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon upon making a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact in the city staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes applies to the proposed land use actions.
thank you very much. All right, we're going to open the public hearing at 8:03 for file number MOD 23-0. Bill modifications of the pattern book. Are there any of the commissioners who wish to disclose any conflict of interest, ex parte contact or bias? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that challenges any of the commissioners to hear this case? Hearing none, anyone on Zoom? Sorry.
No, not seeing any challenges.
All right. So if I could please get the staff report.
Thank you, Chair King. As we just previously discussed in the last hearing, this is kind of a continuation almost of that effort. With the recommendation of approval from the planning commission on the text amendment to the clear vision standards, this kind of piggybacks on that to update the pattern book for the Bryn Hill subdivision, so it also aligns with what is being requested in the text amendment. So the staff report similar to the previous staff report on July 5th and provided that to the applicant, planning staff, planning commission, and those who submitted comments into the record. There was one person who submitted a comment on this application, and that person's comments have been included into the staff report, and they support the modification to the Bryn Hill pattern book. The applicable code criteria are sections 155.025 to 028. The requirements for the application and review procedures, 155.030, the type 2 land use decisions criteria, and then the neighborhood community zone, section 155, 257 to 261. The proposed modification is before you. So the way the pattern book currently reads, which we looked at previously, you have subsection 7 of that pattern book that says that a solid or transparent fence or wall may be constructed in the rear yard of alley loaded lots, a minimum of 2 feet behind the rear building line, maximum height 6 feet. The proposed modification would be that the alleys loaded homes would have the fence 3 feet behind the property. So that is the change. Instead of being 2 feet behind the rear of the home, it's now able to come forward past the rear of the home, but 3 feet behind the property line, which aligns with what you just recommended to the city council for the clear vision standards. Along with that, they're also proposing some amendments to page 12. And the curve reads the setback, minimum 2-foot setback from property line to solid transparent or partially transparent alley fence. Next speed 6, this is going to move at minimum 3 setback from the property line. So that is what they're proposing. They provided an exhibit C, which I have here, and it shows how that would impact the diagram that we looked at previously. So this is the diagram that we just looked at that's in the pattern book today for these single family homes that are rear loaded. They would like to change the call out there that you can see to say minimum setback from the property line as opposed to 2 feet behind the home. And then they would like to replace that exhibit with this new exhibit showing fencing along the rear. I would only offer one comment on this diagram. I believe they should add in the legend that they have on this particular diagram to this diagram to identify the fencing heights and provide some additional clarity on where the fences will be located. So you should probably have some front yard fencing shown on this diagram, similar to what's on this diagram, and a legend to help explain what we're looking at, so we can make sure that when the new plans come in, they're in compliance with both the clear vision standards and the pattern book. Staff's recommendation on this particular request is approval with a condition of approval that says approval of minor mod 23-062 is contingent upon final city council approval of a related text amendment request filed TA 23060. So we discussed this recommended condition of approval with the applicant and their consultants, and actually this came from them as a suggestion to help address this particular kind of mouse or chicken and egg type scenario where one needs to be approved for the other one to be approved. And so I believe they are comfortable with the recommended condition of approval. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Levante,
No.
Commissioner Nottingham,
No.
Commissioner Miller,
No.
Commissioner Howell. No. Commissioner Van Dam.
No.
All right, thank you. The applicant, please come forward. Please state your name and address as a record again.
My name is Maureen Jackson, and my address is 12564 Southwest Main Street in Tigard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, you could start here. First of all, thank you all for recommending approval of the text amendment to City Council. So in addition to requesting the amendment, Lennar is asking Planning Commission to approve an amendment to the Bryn Hill Architectural Pattern Book. And the pattern book was developed in conjunction with and supplements the approved Bryn Hill Master Plan. It includes regulations to help builders achieve the objectives of the master plan and applies to all buildings within the Bryn Hill community. The architectural pattern book was developed to direct the development of the neighborhood and the visual appearance of homes in Bryn Hill. The master fencing program, which is part of the architectural pattern book, provides fencing design details that include the location, heights, design, and materials of the fences. The request includes an amendment to the text, as Steve said, on page 12, to allow a 6-foot tall fence in the rear yards of alley loaded homes within 3 feet of the property line. Thank you. Amendments to the pattern book also include an update to the fence lot diagram on page 15 to update the note that requires a 6-foot alley fence to be set back 3 feet from the property line instead of 2 feet from the building, as it currently states. We're also asking to insert a new exhibit that better illustrates the placement of fences on alley loaded homes with a 20-foot long driveway, as you can see there on the right. And we do agree with Steve, and we'd be happy to add a legend and call out the heights of the fences on that new exhibit. We also understand that approval of the amendment to the pattern book will be conditioned with the City Council's approval of the text amendment, which we hope to present to City Council in August. And thank you again.
Any questions of the applicant?
Just one. Do you know if there are any fences that now with the change in the text amendment from 2 feet to 3 feet are in violation of that? Would they be grandfathered in, or would you self-pay to fix those?
That is a question I will have to refer to Lenara. Sorry.
Give your name and address for the record.
David,
Yeah, you'll need to get in with David that one. I think it's. No, we're gonna take that one.
the trick one. Dave, this one,
Yeah, this one would be,
David Force, Lennar, 11807 Northeast 99th Street, Suite 1170, Vancouver, Washington, 98682.
Thank you.
What's your question again, Commissioner Miller?
Do you know if there are any fences that, with the change from 2 feet to 3 feet, are now in violation of the new?
I believe most of the fences are probably set back 1 foot from the property line. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah, 1 to 2.
1 to 2 feet. So, if we went 3 feet, they would still be in violation. To answer your question.
Would those be grandfathered in, or would you require those to be changed?
just for certification, we don't grandfather, that term doesn't exist. Potentially legal non-conforming, we'll have to chat about that with the city council. It could be an issue that they need to be fixed, so.
Okay, thank you.
It just depends on what the proposal is that comes out of here and just recommend it over to city council. And then that discussion could be had at that time to determine how we're gonna deal with these fences that would not meet the revision. Because they're currently out of compliance with the existing code. They would be further out of compliance with the amendment. So I don't believe we would sit there and recognize them as legal non-conforming. We would want them to be fixed.
That's all. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else?
I don't have anything, thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, if there's any proponents who wishing to testify in favor? Hearing, seeing none, anyone on the Zoom?
Nobody with their hand up to speak. There are some comments in the chat, and it just indicates that all the current homes are in violation of the 3 feet.
Anyone, opponents wishing to testify against? Hearing, seeing none in the audience, any on the Zoom?
No hands, no comments.
Anyone wishing to testify neutral or against? No one,
No.
I would, actually.
We got one.
please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Jeremy. There
Pretty good.
we go. Thank you. Jeremy Anderson, 30973 Northwest Brookings Street. Ferndale.
Thank you.
Well, I recognize the desire for the 3-foot setback. It's not in the proposed text amendment. It's in the suggested revisions by the planning commission. I don't believe that's consistent with many of the other large cities around us with similar styles of building. I do find it interesting that in the work session and in the prior meeting, several surrounding cities' codes were presented and notably absent for those that support the way things are done in Brent Hill. I'm also not excited about the neutrality of the planning, city planner. I think that it's incumbent upon city planner to do their job and to make a recommendation to the committee around what should be done, given the knowledge of the facts, planning standards and so forth, applicable laws and et cetera. I am also thinking about what's going on here now in Brent Hill. We're playing a yo-yo game right now I recall some of the initial conversations where I showed up. I remember, Chairperson Levon vividly remember, I can't believe you interpreted it that way. To the planning manager with regards to clear vision standards on private driveways intersecting a private alley. I'm not in favor of the 3-foot setback. I think it's unnecessary. It causes a major disruption to the homeowners in Brent Hill. And I just don't think there's actually a real value in it, specifically because as the members of Lennar mentioned, that alleyway is for driving. Driving happens at a very slow speed on those alleyways. My grandkids, I have 3 of them from 4 through 11. They do chalk art on the sidewalk in front of the house. They leave their shoes in the front door of the house. They enter and exit from the front door of the house. I've seen very little, if any, traffic along the alleyway. I think the 3-foot setback is unnecessary. Thank you.
Any questions of the testimony? Hearing none, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Hearing, seeing none, any discussion? Hearing none. Close the public hearing at 8:18. This is going to be quasi judicial, so therefore we will be making a decision. Either to approve, to deny, or to continue the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve, city file number MOD 23-062, Brent Hill minor modification to the pattern book.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Levante, seconded by Commissioner Cunningham for approval of MOD 23062, Brent Hill modification to the pattern book. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? It is unanimous. All right, item number 8 is new business.
Yes, new business. First, I'd just like to apologize to the planning commission for not being able to continue the work session on the sign code. We have been really busy at the city hall. But I have been working hard on trying to get that prepared for you for your next meeting. So we will be bringing forward that request that you had of myself to help provide some more detail, not only with the comments you made previously on that definition section, but also maybe to provide some proposed changes that could potentially be for consideration during the work session at the next meeting. So we will provide the type of feedback for you so you can see, make some ideas. We do have some additional new business, and I appreciate the chair asking me that question again, and the mayor reminding me. We will be bringing back the UGB proposal for a couple reasons. One, as a result of some of the hearings that were held with the city council and the issues that were raised during their meetings, we realized that there are some additional findings, those supplementary findings that we would like to add to Goal 14 to help address some of the issues that were raised by the opposition to protect us as we continue through the process. So we're going to renotice the hearings and reconvene with you on August 9th to present those supplementary findings to you, and also to satisfy a notice requirement for the first evidentiary hearing. That was not provided into the newspaper as required. So there really has been just kind of a getting up to speed with everything, bringing all new people on board, understanding who is doing what with our consultants. There was a little bit of a drop of the ball there, so we don't want to get all the way through the Washington County process, only to be appealed later to have to come back. So we're going to try and address those issues now on August 9th, and then we'll also be going forward to the city council with amended ordinances, the same ordinance, just amended, so we can try to get those concerns behind us. The good news is that Washington County is so busy, we are not even able to get before the planning commission until September. So this gives us a window here to go back and correct some of these errors or address some of the concerns from the citizens, so we can try to have a decision that can withstand the test of appeals. Because we do believe it will be appealed. 5,000 prints at a minimum.
All right, any questions of the new business comments? Okay, item number 9 is unfinished business.
Unfinished business, what kind of new business in terms of the text amendment? I mean, the code revisions for the sign code. So again, we'll be bringing that forward to your next meeting.
At our last meeting and in our minutes, it was talked to, I think it was Commissioner Howe brought up the information about the sidewalks on 313. You said you were going to look at that. Do you have any follow-up on that?
I did bring that to the new public works director's attention for him to go out and look. I did not get a response. So let me check back with him to see what he discovered. So thank you for that reminder. We'll see what they found.
Okay. Any other unfinished business? Any of the commissioners? Okay. Item number 10 is the land use applications and the city project monthly report. Any questions or comments on those?
What's the last one? Says minor modification of existing approval on Commercial Street.
Yeah, so that is for the Richards Ridge property out here at the corner of Glencoe and Commercial Street. So we, as you probably know, they came through you, believe it was in 2020 to do the project that's out there right now for the existing building, the parking area, the landscaping and so forth. What he would like to do at this time is modify that approval to include food carts at the east end of the property. Right now, he's proposing 4 food carts max. And so that's the modification that we're looking at to the previous approval.
Hasn't been accepted.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Have we accepted it? Because they're working on it.
Well, that's a bit of an issue. We have accepted the application, but we have not completed the 30-day completeness review. We have not issued a decision yet. They have been trying to get way out in front of this. They've been down to the county trying to get permits. The county's been contacting us. We've informed them to not issue any permits and to wait. We've talked with the food cart people, told them there's a process that has to be completed here before you're ready to go. Please be patient. So I think people will understand that they have jumped the gun a little bit. We're hopeful that you will pause now while we get through the review and give them a decision. Yeah, it has been a bit of a challenge.
I guess my question is, why is it a minor modification when he came to us and said he was going to phase it? And we approved 1 phase and he was supposed to come back for land use approval for anything additional.
Right, and so that's why we're doing it as minor modification. We can bring that to you if you'd like.
Well, it's not a minor modification, it's another phase.
I
The
understand.
land use phase.
So we talked about it internally, and then that was the decision that was made.
Brings up another question on the property that's the old rusty piston that is now going to, I guess, they were required to do a design review for change of use.
Correct.
Now, I know that might have been before your time, but, when the Rusty Piston went in there, they didn't have to do anything.
Okay,
And so I always assumed that, we had rough proportionality, and it seems like the information I was getting is they're going through a lot more than what we would normally require, so.
rough proportionality applies to a request to make an off-site improvement as a part of a land use decision for a particular use. So whether it's commercial, industrial, or residential, rough proportionality applies to when you're requesting off-site improvements. It has to be proportional to the impacts. It does not mean that we cannot take a person through design review for a change of use. And a matter of fact, that's exactly what the code says. I think you've clearly seen that errors have been made in the past, and we're trying to rectify that. We've worked closely with the folks there at the Rusty Piston. They've been wonderful to work with. They've agreed to all this stuff. They want to do it. They understand that the property needs to be upgraded a little bit to help with the flow of the on-site circulation pattern for the vehicles that are coming in and out of that property. I think one thing people don't understand is there's about 10 to 15 feet of right of way between Commercial Street and their property line. So it looks like they got this huge lot, but it's just shallower than you think. And the building sits right in the middle of the property. So it makes it very hard to bring parking onto the site, to get a circulation pattern, to get this stuff to work. And so I really commend the folks doing this to work with us and to want to do it.
Any other comments on the land use application or the meeting schedule? All right, thank you. Item number 11, planning commission comments. Any comments from the planning commission? Anything for? Oh, go ahead.
So does that mean, that we want to bring back the clear vision again in front of the planning commission, talking about private alleys and driveways and stuff within the city limits, or should we address that tonight? Do we have any?
I'll defer to. I'll defer to,
Would you like to address that? We want to have our planner bring that back, or there's lots of private entries on public roads in the city. They may not be alleys, but
you were referring to private, and private streets, right?
private on.
Private access, public streets. They're subject to the clear vision.
Well, I think one of the things that I brought up before was that I think Washington County has a clear vision for intersections and, for instance, railroads and alleys and things like that is greater, like 30 feet. But for driveways, then they shrink it down to maybe a 20-foot or triangle or something because they're private driveways. But according to the way the code is written, it's the same clear vision for everybody's driveway that comes out on a public street, no matter if it's an alley, if it's driveway off an alley, off an easement, off anything.
That's why I don't believe the code, the way it was written, was applicable to driveways, only because it calls out corners and I don't know, it just.
Well, and then maybe that's what we need to do. We need to just have that as part of a workshop too, but be it included with the signs if that works, or as a separate workshop.
And then does industrial need to be a different setback than a residential area too? I don't
Yeah,
know.
because right now, the only thing that doesn't require that is the C1 zone.
Right.
Which is just odd to me. When you're talking about downtown safety, people, pedestrians walking in and out of storefronts, but there's no clear vision requirements.
My only thought on that, because I've pondered that as well, is especially with the new revisions to the downtown improvement plan, is with new development, with reduced parking requirements and stuff, those buildings would try to be pushed closer to the front. They could have little to no parking or parking in the rear. That's my educated guess. on maybe why the C1 zone was excluded from the clear vision standard, because it's only in the downtown corridor. But again, I was not here for those conversations, but that would seem to make sense.
Well, it's probably because we grandfathered in those existing buildings on the south side that are all, like you said, the Pythians, the grocery, the tavern, everything was just right up on that property line.
Right, but they have no driveways.
Right, but there's still driveways on the backside of that, it's still C1 on the backside of those buildings, correct?
Well, the only building that's a through building is the grocery store, and it's no longer a through.
But the parking lot and stuff that's behind the grocery store right now, is that C1 also?
Yeah,
I think it's not
It is,
correct.
so that would access.
it's not a through block, it's owned by somebody else.
Well, it's not a, it's not a,
They don't own property from one street to the other street, is what I'm saying.
correct, but there's
Nobody.
a parking lot on the other side.
Right, but that's not what the question was. The question was, do they have driveways to those businesses? They don't. There may be other. Businesses.
Well, I guess
Bye.
No, we will push them, we'll try and get them to work with us, obviously, we're at their mercy, you know, since it's their street, but.
I believe when we talked about improvements to North Avenue and the city taking North Avenue, that was discussed. And
Well, that's good to know, it's good to know. Been something that I overlooked, but I think that's exactly what we need to do. I'll raise that with the city council to bring exhibit 1 back into the code.
Well, it says,
it calls for
it calls for it,
Yes.
right out of the code, it's
Yes.
just missing from what got brought over.
Yes.
like a lot of things.
I know, and I don't know if you're aware, there's a lot of stuff that's not been proved on what's existing there. When it got transferred from the old code to the new code,
If there's anything you can share with me, I'll make sure that we.
so we're only finding it as we're coming across it, so if something looks odd to you, don't just assume that the code is correct. There could be something.
I have seen tremendous errors in the code.
Yeah, for instance, like the R 2.5 and the size of duplexes and triplexes. I'm assuming all the commissioners agree that that's an error in the code.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard from all that, and I think, you know, you probably saw the email transition between Chair King and myself and Commissioner Levanti. And then I was requested by Chair King to reach out to Heather Austin to see what she knew on that. So we did that. She provided a pretty detailed email with a link to the February 9th, 2022, I believe it was, hearing that you guys had on the code update, and she said that the code language as it is written today is exactly as it was intended and provided to you in the process that you did in February 9th, 2022. So I would just encourage you to go back and look at that, look at the link, look at the information that's in there, and it's pretty clear if you look at the track changes of what was being proposed.
I
But to get
disagree.
to that point though, we've
Let's
been
just
working with the
agree to
mayor.
disagree on that.
We've been working with the mayor to have a joint work session with you and the city council on all things code related, not just the R 2.5, but you know, let's just break it out, right? Let's see what we need to do to try and adjust anything that's in error right now, so we can have a better code. I mean, for example, there's references in the code that Lori would take the lead on things, but that's not what we want. You know, so there's just some really odd references in there that we probably could clean up. In addition to addressing any other concerns.
Any other planning commission comment? Anything for city council? Mayor, have any comment for the planning commission?
Thank you, Chair King. I just wanted to give you all, each Friday, Andy gives the city council kind of a Friday 5 update, and I just pulled out a few items out of his email just to let you know. Several employees have had milestone anniversaries here at the city. Recently, Javier Espinoza celebrated 5 years. He is also working on his second water operation certification later this year, so we're pretty proud of him there. We had a pretty good, fairly decent turnout for the 4th for the parade. It was extremely hot. There was a conflict of probably not very well attended, I think, just because of the heat. August 3rd is our national night out this year. Obviously, the Elephant Garlic Festival, second weekend in August. Staff and myself have been meeting with the county, Board of County Commissioners to talk about our UGB plans and our processes. We've met with Three commissioners, we're meeting with another commissioner tomorrow, just to bring them up to speed with our UGB plans and our processes. Doug, the rare volunteer, he will be, leaving North Plains. His term is coming at the end of summer. I believe, staff and the Little's Library will be having kind of a little celebration for him. And he'll probably get invited for a cupcake or, you know, whatever, just to say goodbye and just say thank you if you'd like. And I know that staff has also been meeting with the county, about the public works building. Most of where it is in the process is that, we're still waiting for permits for the county and the Clean Water Services approval, so we're still, we're just waiting on those two entities. We have a new IT provider for the city, so there will be some changes, or you might see some minor changes with the IT. If there's anything major coming down the pipe, Andy will certainly let all of us know. And then I believe this Saturday, from 12 to 1 at Century High School, Senator Merkley will be giving a town hall. I'll probably go and attend. If there's anything pressing that you would like for me to share with Senator Merkley, I'm happy to share that. But if you'd like to come and attend, again, it's at Century High School from 12 to 1. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, if I might just say one thing to echo what the mayor said, I just would like to encourage everybody who has the time to come out and thank Doug. Volunteer work here at the city, he's done a great job. With that being said, we're also excited for the new person that's coming up. We have a new rare person that will also be joining us as Doug leaves. So her name is Rowan. I can't remember her last name, but she interviewed quite well. She has a very unique background, and I think you folks will enjoy working with her as much as you've enjoyed working with Doug.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 12. Any staff comment?
That was my comment.
All right, if there's no other commission business, our next regular meeting is August the 9th, and we will have a workshop at 6.
Workshop on the sign code.
Okay. Nothing else, we're adjourned. 8:44. I wonder if we're